Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr, and here also as well with Kevin Noon. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, as someone who has made something of a course over the years of nitpicking the inefficiencies of certain fourth down decisions, Tony, today is my day. Remember the Simpsons line where they say, Sherry Bobbins to you, every day is Guy Fawkes Day. I think today might literally be Guy Fawkes Day. If not, it was yesterday. But oh man, this is we're gonna have some stuff to talk about today.
Kevin, how's it going?
Well, I'm doing better than the Ohio State offense. I mean, obviously, they go for 495, 405 throwing, 90 rushing. Ooh, it was a game. That's all I can say. It wasn't great. It wasn't. I mean, they won, so you got that going. As North Carolina is going to beat Wake Forest right now, so maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see a crazy upset day, and Ohio State will. Oh, and a flag on the play. It'll be one of those crazy upset games or days where all hell breaks loose, and Ohio State fans will take a little solace in saying, "Yeah, but at least we won," or not. It was a pretty difficult game to watch.
I thought it was fantastic. I thought this was exactly what we all wanted to see because, Tom, do you know who won bold predictions this week?
I'm going to assume it must have been you because I'm not sure I got any of them. I actually had one at one point, and then I went back. Much like the Ohio State offense, I actually had it at one point, and then just spent the rest of the game going backwards because
Stop
that's what
blaming
happens when
people.
you're. All you have to do is not throw the ball in situations where the entire universe is screaming for you to just run the ball, idiot. And sometimes that's too much to ask. So yes, yes. Well, I mean, at least there was.
I missed all of that.
I missed all of that too.
Okay. Well,
Turn off everybody else's Wi-Fi. I have this streaming on the lowest setting. I
Yeah.
don't know what to
So
say.
I'll just say welcome,
It's
everybody.
inefficient, like the Buckeyes today.
Yeah, welcome everybody to our instant reaction podcast following Ohio State's 26-17 win over Nebraska, a game where Ohio State threw the ball 54 times, ran it 30 times, and when they finally started to run it at the end of the game, Ryan Day was like, "You know what we ought to do? Let's call." CJ Stroud was like, "I'll do you one better. I'll try to figure something out and I'll fumble the ball and almost give the game back to Nebraska." And that one was almost an all-timer. Back in the day, like Todd Beckman would sometimes do some things where you're like, what are you trying to do? Don't try to do that. Like he'd be getting sacked and he'd just throw the ball away. He was doing that, however, as a sixth-year player. This is CJ Stroud in his eighth start, so you kind of get it. But also, as the head coach calling the play back, who is just in his eighth start, just keep running the ball there. I mean, if you don't want to run it at any other point during the game, you just had a 10-yarder and then like a 22-yarder. Maybe just keep running it at that point because it seemed like Nebraska had given in. Like they knew it was over at that point.
yeah, it was Ohio State had the ball. You're up 6. You're in Nebraska territory. Scott Frost has already screwed up the timeout. You're not going to believe this, but Scott Frost mismanaged something in the game. I was shocked as well that he didn't use his timeouts correctly. But he has botched this where you're now inside like a minute and a half. All you have to do is run the ball 3 times. He's out of timeouts. You kick a field goal and you're done. And it's like, no, 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 no. It was the entire game was just Ryan Day and Scott Frost just handing one beer back and forth and going, hold my beer, hold my beer, hold my beer.
Dear.
And I mean, Ryan Day almost had the last hold there with the decision to throw it. Stroud getting stripped, like holy pants! Like there's like one thing you can't do there. Like what is literally the worst thing you could do? That's what they're gonna do. Like holy Moses, that was Ryan Day. I don't know if this would be allowed under NIL, but Ryan Day needs to send Noah Ruggles a fruit basket because he bailed Ryan Day out all day. That was a day full of terrible decisions, and Noah Ruggles just bailed him out over and over again.
And this was a game where if Noah Ruggles is going to miss a kick at this point, to this point in the season, you thought it might have been in this one because he was put in clutch situation after clutch situation and responded. So credit to that guy. I mean, he played at North Carolina, started for a year, lost a job, came here, won everything that Ohio State was hoping he would be. But yeah, this was such a the TV guys were like, does this feel kind of like herky jerky to you? And it was never a smooth running game. And even though you had Jackson Smith and Jigba setting the school record with 15 catches, coming up just short of breaking Terry Glenn's record, Smith and Jigba finished with 240 yards receiving. Terry Glenn had 253 in a game in 1995. We talked earlier that this might be a game where you see somebody put up some big numbers because Garrett Wilson is out, and he did that. But man, if you've got Travion Henderson, and granted, he finished with 21 carries, and I think he may have had like 12 at the half or something like that, but nothing was ever established. And in the first half, he was running the ball 6 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards. They were staying on schedule, maybe not ahead of a schedule, but they were on schedule, and he just couldn't run him 2 times in a row in that first half. And I know Ryan Day loves to throw the ball. He's a quarterback that you're gonna get that. But he talks about being balanced, and maybe I don't know, maybe they felt they couldn't, and so they did what they could, and that's throw the ball, Kevin. And that's how they got their balance from being able to do something when something else is being taken away.
Well, yeah, and I've already read on here, and certainly in internal chats that we were having, just throwing late when they did because they just felt, well, we can't run the ball. I mean, at least they were high percentage throws, but we even saw high percentage throws fall incomplete in this game. I mean, I'm really at a loss for words. I mean, that we saw all sorts of issues with the offensive line. I mean, I don't call certain players out, but there were a couple that struggled mightily more than others. I'm going to throw this out too as the great equalizer, and people will be like, "Well, of course you're running to the old standby." It was curious officiating today, and it hurt both teams. I mean, there was a kick catch interference that was called on Nebraska that was absolutely ludicrous. But was a single hold called against Nebraska today? No. Was it?
There was at least one in the first half. There was.
Was there one? I must have
At
blinked.
least one.
All right, because it was horrible. It was horrible once again in terms of the holding. But to get back, I just wanted to get that thought out. But to get back to Tony's thing, I don't understand the lack of diversity in the run game. It just seems like good old rock. Nothing beats rock. We're going to just run this son of a gun up the middle, and eventually it's going to happen. And yes, I did see Travion Henderson with a 22-yarder with like 4 minutes left in the game or less, but all of the things that he was doing earlier in the season, it seems that they're not employing of trying to get him to the outside. I mean, at least off tackle. So I don't know. I really think that I sent you guys a message and I put it on social media. They're going to be a couple defensive champions, but Noah Ruggles is going to have to bring a date with them to Champions Dinner because it's going to be very lonely in there because there were not a lot of champion efforts.
Yeah, it might be him and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and perhaps Travion Henderson. I'm not sure. Maybe you throw Luke Whippler in there just for recovering the fumble at the end.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's going to go down as one of the great unsung plays in Ohio State of the Ohio State season. That it's not going to show up as this like huge play in the box score. It's just sack, stripped, fumble recovered by Ohio State. But like that was a game saving play because either Nebraska gets the ball at midfield, just needing to go 50 yards for a game winning touchdown, or it's a scoop and score, and then they're up by one. Assuming they make an extra point, which is not a given Nebraska's kicking game today, but. Yeah, I mean, to Kevin's point, you saw so much interior run. They're running, inside zone, and just over and over again. There was a late, I think, third down play where they just ran a little speed option. It's like, where has that been all game? Like, for 2 weeks, you've been watching defenses crunch in and crunch in. Get outside. Like, you have fast running backs. You just ran like a little speed option to Travion Henderson for like 4 yards. And it's like, boom, first down. Like, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
it is interesting that you finally see C.J. Stroud used in the running game. And Ohio State, I believe, is held to their lowest total of the year, 30 rushes for 90 yards, 92 of those yards by Travion Henderson. And really, really bizarre. I almost wonder if they were using the passing game as an extension of the running, save for a couple of throws. They were all short passes. Even the 75-yarder to Jackson Smith and Jigba was just a little thing out to the side. Chris Olave, 7 catches, 61 yards. That's 9 yards a catch. Targeted 12 times. Some of those targets that didn't end up connecting were down the field, as we saw. Travion Henderson, 6 for 44. Jeremy Ruckert, 3 for 13. Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 for 25. Julian Fleming, 2 for 22. Should have been 3 for about 60 or 50 or so. I think that was a bad call by the refs. How about my favorite play of the day was the wide screen to Mitch Rossi for absolutely no reason out to the sideline. I don't know what that was.
Well, I mean, you have so many incredible athletes on this team and so many playmakers. It's like, just get on ball in space. It's like that is what getting too clever looks like. That was oh man, they'll never see this coming. And the reason they won't see it coming is because that's not one of the 6 best options you had on that play.
I'd rather see a Mitch Rossi jet sweep. At least that has a better chance of being successful than what they did there. Give him a running start, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit him for a completion there, okay, he picks up 8 yards or something. Hit Chris Olave or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Julian Fleming. Who's more likely to make someone miss in space and turn a 6-yard gain into a 60-yard gain? It doesn't feel like Mitch Rossi's at the top of that list. And Mitch Rossi has been a huge help to this team and a major contributor. And I'm not trying to, bag on him, but it's if you line those guys all up and make them run a 40-yard dash, I don't think Mitch Rossi is finishing first, second, or third in that. This is the reality of the situation. And that's not, this is not he's been a good soldier, so let's get him some touches. You can do that when you're up 30. You can throw him the ball when you're playing Rutgers and it's the second half and the game's been over for half an hour. You can't do that in the second half of this game.
You can do that against Purdue. You don't need to do that while the game is on the line. So Ohio State puts up, I believe, 496 yards of total offense. That is the most that Nebraska has given up this year. Previously, the most was 459 to Michigan. So we're talking about this Ohio State offense that can't run, can't do this, can't do that, and still 495 yards of total offense, and 408 of that or so was C.J. Stroud. 405 yards passing for C.J. Stroud, 36 of 54, completing 2/3 of his passes for 2 touchdowns, 2 bad interceptions. The first interception, he could have just ran a little bit and picked up some yards. Second interception, just throwing it up for grabs. You can see as Wake Forest goes down, and now they're going to have a really difficult time getting into the playoffs. Almost an impossible time getting into the playoffs, in fact. But that second interception to Chris Olave, you can see what he was going for. It's just the throw never got there. And I was impressed by the Nebraska defenders. JoJo Delman he had some freakish plays and was impressive. And I give credit to Nebraska certainly for containing Travion Henderson, although I would also give credit, Kevin, to Ryan Day for some of that.
I don't know if credit is the right word. I mean, I guess it is in its truest sense. Yeah, you talk about we didn't see really any long passes. Yeah, we did. The second interception, that was a long pass. I mean, he had to step up. He was being pressured at the line, and he just makes a bad decision. We didn't get to see a great all 22 shot. I didn't see if there really were any other options there, but we don't see CJ Stroud's face when he has to run the ball, but I just imagine this look of disgust on his face because he really does not like to run the ball, it appears. That is where we are at with all of that. I'm looking for our super chat to make sure that there it is. It just seems so painful in that situation, but the play calling was very odd. I don't know where the disconnect is. I mean, I'm going to have to go back and watch this game because I'm a masochist and try and figure out some things of, what wasn't right. I mean, this is a team that is built on tempo, but tempo is built on success, and this team doesn't string together enough success, or at least over the last 8 quarters of football, to be able to run that tempo. So you take the tempo out, and it becomes much more mediocre. So I mentioned not only on the pregame show, but I also mentioned on the Friday night show, this team gets off to a quick start. Well, it was 0-0 after the first quarter, so we didn't see any sort of quick start.
Yeah, let's tackle this super chat from Ryan Dawes. Thank you, Ryan. No need to panic. Offense needs to stop making stupid mistakes. Defense needs to continue to grow and keep getting after the quarterback. They are certainly getting after the quarterback. The offense does need to stop making stupid mistakes. It's been pretty baffling these last 2 weeks, and I'm getting to the point of wondering, can they stop it? Because and it just comes in bunches, and you're like, this was not a great game for Paris Johnson. I was kept thinking, like, dude, are they just going to move to Matt Jones full time? And they brought Matt Jones in there, but then they brought Paris Johnson back in after that. And yeah, this needs to be addressed. I'm sure it will be, but I'm sure it was addressed going into this game. And look what it produced.
The fact that we're talking about a bunch of things that we've talked about in previous games means that the issues haven't necessarily gotten better. And, I mean, I see people are basically committing seppuku in the comments, and it's like, okay, just like, it's okay. Like, there's a lot of questions about, like, this isn't a playoff team. It's like, okay, well, name me 4 teams who are definitively better than this Ohio State team this year. Like, there might not be, this isn't a top 5 team. Okay, who are 5 teams who are definitively better? This is not a top 10 team. Who are 10 teams who are definitively better? Because there are not 5 what you would traditionally consider top 5 teams by the normal metrics this year. This is a little bit of a weird year. Now, Ohio State has some significant issues. Ohio State has some recurring issues. I tweeted, I think in the first quarter, like, in games where you can tell games where Ryan Day's getting a little puckered up because Urban Meyer used to run QB power. That was Urban Meyer's tell. You're just going to run JT guard's butt 20 times during the game. And that was how you knew Urban Meyer. You could see Urban Meyer's blood pressure. You could just measure it by how many times he ran QB power right up the right guard's butt. Ryan Day just gets real pass happy. Ryan Day will talk to us about, how he wants to be balanced. A couple weeks ago, it was, 30 runs, 30 passes or whatever. And that's balance. It's like, well, that's not really balance. Balance is being able to do both things. But if we're going to define balance that way, okay. After the first quarter, he was on pace to throw like 80 passes and 20 runs. Like, you're way off balance on what you yourself say you want to be doing. And he falls into that same trap a lot. He falls into that trap, and he falls into the way too conservative on 4th down trap constantly. You go back to the 2019 Fiesta Bowl against Clemson. What's he doing in the first half? They're marching up and down the field. He keeps kicking field goals. And guess what? 2 field goals is not as many points as a touchdown and a PAT. Like, so you kick 2 field goals. That's great. 7 points beats your 6. Sorry, that's how math works. And at this point, I feel like we've seen this a lot with Ryan Day, and I don't, I'm not saying like he's a bad coach. I'm not saying Ohio State can't win Big Ten championships with him. I'm not saying Ohio State can't win a national championship with him. I'm just saying you keep seeing the same issues over and over and over again with him in these types of games, and I think that has to be a concern, or it has to be just, when we're doing our predictions, we just have to take into account Ryan Day's just going to kick a whole bunch of field goals in these kind of games because that's what he does.
But he hates field goals, and
Does
yet,
he? Does
well, and as we've seen, another 4 field goals today. This is the 3rd time this season that the Buckeyes have been outgained on the ground. They were outgained against Minnesota and Oregon, and then obviously this one. This is also now the 2nd time since the 2007 season Ohio State has gone 4 games without rushing for 200 yards. They did it in 2018, obviously. They did it for probably 6 or 7 games in 2018 because they couldn't run it. Here, it's almost a decision, a choice, where they've gone 4 straight games. And then, not for nothing, the 2006 team did it as well. So maybe there's some possibilities there, that it's not all bad. The 2016 did it, and they were one of the best teams in the nation. Not the best,
There's
though.
a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people jumping off the roof in the comments, and let's just talk you guys off the ledge, okay? So I just saw one from I am Jaden Cook. I really thought Coach Day was going to improve the third down and red zone defense. Kevin, off the top of your head, what was Nebraska on third down today on offense?
I know they were over 9 at one point, and then they converted their 10th one. So I'm going to say 2 for 13. I don't know. I don't have that.
Exactly.
I don't have the
2
page. I
for
swear to
13.
God, I don't have
Yes.
the page in front of me. I was just
Yes.
doing a little forensic accounting there.
Yes, exactly. 2 for 13. I mean, you're not going to get, unless you're playing some FCS, like a bad FCS team, you're not going to do better than 2 for 13 on the road. And in the red zone, they gave up one touchdown, right? Did they give up one touchdown, or did they just give up a field goal in the red zone? Because Nebraska scored on what, two? No, they scored. They had one where they had a long play that got down to the.
They had the long
2-yard
play,
line
and
or something.
Martinez
Yeah.
punched it in from 1 or 2 yards out.
Yeah.
That was their
That's
red
it.
zone because they
So
also
this
had
was-
the Torre long play too.
Yeah, they did not have a lot of really long drives. Nebraska's drive chart, their touchdowns were 2 plays 75 yards, 5 plays 75 yards. They had the longest drive they had was 11 plays 73, and it ended in the red zone with a field goal. Ohio State stopped them in the red zone. I mean, third down defense and red zone defense. There's plenty of stuff to complain about. Those are not things I would those if anything are things you should be feeling better about after that game, not worse.
And also, this was the worst offensive performance by Nebraska this season. The 361 yards of total offense was their lowest this season. So that is something to make note of as well. I mean, Ohio State held them to a season low. And 17 points, if Ohio State gives up 17 points to, I'm going to say, every team they play this year, they're going to win. And so it's certainly not the end of the world. They won on the road in the Big Ten. And as I say it, and as others say, never apologize. Never apologize for a win on the road in the Big Ten. It's better than a loss. Other teams lose on the road in the Big Ten. If you win on the big road in the Big Ten, take it, get on a plane as quickly as you can, and get the heck out of Dodge. Just go home and enjoy it. Enjoy the evening. Get back to the office on Sunday. Fix the problems. Work towards fixing the problems. Hold players accountable for continued issues, and go from there. And this was their first game in November. They've got 3 more. You don't want to be the same team the first game in November that you are in the 4th game in November. Ohio State needs to get better. I think they know that. I think everybody knows that. They've been made to bleed their own blood 2 games in a row now. And if they were feeling their oats or thinking they were more than they actually were, I think they realize now that they need to be better. And so they can go about doing that. And every single play is going to carry more weight. And the execution, the lack of execution, the penalties are unacceptable. And I think they had 6 in the third quarter or something like that. I mean, that's a lack of concentration. That's a lack of composure. And people are going to be running for that one, I bet. And I mean, Schmidt runs running laps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the second week in a row, and this is 2 weeks since Ryan Day answered a question about the concerns about the offensive line recruiting with, basically the functional equivalent of did we win? And it was like, are you worried about the offensive line recruiting? Like, well, no, as long as the play on the field looks good, then, as the development's good, everything's fine. And that's fine. And then this is 2 weeks in a row that it's like, not only have they not been able to run the ball, but also like you're just getting weird. You're getting penalties. It just looks all off kilter. The pass pro was good again today. They really had no issues in pass pro until the very end of the game when they shouldn't have been passing the ball anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's just, you should be able to run the ball against Nebraska. Nebraska is a good defense. They are not nearly as good a defense as you're going to face later on in the year. And, that's going to be, you see like some real warning signs that, they have to get the offensive line sorted out. And I don't know if that's, you take the rotation from 6 to 5 with whatever change is necessary to make that happen, to improve the play or what. But like, it is, the offensive line no longer looks good. The offensive line no longer looks like Well, the results on the field are good, so therefore, that must mean the process is good. There's some stuff that needs to get straightened out up there.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge this super chat so I can take it off the page. Rumor is Tom that plays fantasy CFL football, maybe USFL. I don't know. XFL 1.0. I'm not sure.
Who are we? The Rough Riders. Who are we going to beat? The Rough Riders.
They're all named the Rough Riders.
I was always an Argos fan. Just an FYI. I was born an Argos fan, and I will die an Argos fan. Go Argo Go-Go's. That's what. What's this next one? The screen is so small on my phone.
Treasure the Tour says, Tom, for the Michigan State versus Ohio State game, if you can come within 7 points of the actual score, I'll donate $100. That's a lot of pressure. I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, we got to do that like on at least on the Friday, if not on the pregame.
Yeah, we'll put that out. I will put my best supercomputer on it, and I will figure out exactly what is going to happen. My concern is that then I will have spoiled the game for you, and it'll be like, spoiler alert, hello, what a jerk. So I had the live stat broadcast, which we have Hulu at my house, so I'm like 2 plays behind the live game. So at one point I said to my son, he's going to throw an interception here. And he's like, "What are you doing?" Like, wait, sorry. Didn't mean to spoil anything for you.
You could have convinced your son that you were like psychic, or you know football so well. Just like I feel like there's an interception coming. Just look at this coverage.
Dad's a witch.
Like, you could have gained the respect of your son, albeit an ill-gotten gain. But that would have been. It was like when I used to bring a remote control downstairs and people are trying to watch TV and I'm changing the channel and they're like, "What's going on?" And it's like, yeah, you would be doing that with actual football, and you blew an opportunity there, Tom. But also, stat broadcast being ahead of the television, even I had to like put it behind my other browser and just be like, I don't want to know what's happening before I see it on TV. That's why people are like, why don't you listen to the radio instead of the TV? Because Gus and Joel, not great, and they have not been great, and I think they don't study enough, honestly, especially Gus. And I don't think they have good spotters either, because they're getting names wrong, they're getting players wrong, they're getting situations wrong. So it's not just on them what you call everything. They need help, and they're not getting very good help. But yeah, I don't like to listen to the radio when watching a game because you've got to match it up perfectly, and then also I like if I'm forced to sit home, I like the full television experience. What's this from? Go ahead.
APAP Jones says he wants a running quarterback, or at least one who will run at a broken play. Can't make a playoff run with this predictable QB play. I mean, it would open things up in the run game for sure. I mean, there was a play where even Gus and Joel were commenting on. There was, I forget it must have been a Travion Henderson one, where the guy it was a handoff to Henderson, and like there's the unblocked defender coming from the back edge of the play, and it was like it was such a just like not even a thought that Stroud might keep it. So he crashed down so hard that he actually caught him from behind. And, that's the kind of thing that will open up. It'll open up the stuff, for Stroud actually carrying it. But just if the threat of Stroud carrying it is there, that'll open up some other stuff as well.
And if it's a consistent thing and he actually does pick up some yards, then that would be beneficial as well. Sam Maloney, thank you. Yes. Let's move on. Here's something I wanted to talk to you guys about. This whole defense. The situation with like Taraji Mitchell had 1 tackle in the game, and we saw like Palaie Naote had 4 in the first half. It might have been the 4 quietest tackles I've ever seen, because I hardly didn't really notice him too much. Steel Chambers comes in and makes 2 tackles on the first 3 plays of the first half when he's in there. Finishes with 6 tackles on the day, 3rd highest number on the team, which was one of my bold predictions. In fact, the only bold prediction of our 14 that either of us got right. So congrats to both me and Steel Chambers. I did not even call for the interception, but he's just in the right place at the right time. The lack of production there from Taraji Mitchell when he was in there, really feels like this is moving even more and more towards Steel Chambers time now, don't you guys think?
Oh yeah. I mean, he came right in at the beginning of the second half, made a play right off the bat. I mean, I think we need to see more Steel Chambers, and that's not me calling for less of this other player, but it's a zero-sum game unless you sit there and run some weird configuration where you're like, let's play all of our healthy linebackers. I mean, somebody's going to have to get less plays when somebody gets more, but Steel Chambers is a difference maker.
That we call that the national championship game, defensive game plan. Worked out great. Don't check my math on that. Lots of people talking about how Purdue is not going to be easy, and yeah, I think that's pretty much a given because if Nebraska's hitting you for big plays in the passing game, Purdue has far better wide receiver talent than Nebraska does, and
They have zero run threat whatsoever.
But
less than zero.
Has that impacted anything in the last couple of weeks?
No, but I'm just saying that you're not spying a mobile quarterback. None of those three can run. Tony can run better than those three quarterbacks.
Let's not go crazy. Yeah, Nebraska average.
I will sleep on the cot of shame. Let's make that one happen right there. I think Tony can outrun all three of those turkeys.
Nebraska averaged 3.3 yards per carry. It was 5 yards per carry, sack adjusted, but that was kind of skewed by a couple late runs. There was a lot of, their starting running back, the only running back they had, Johnson, the whole game, 16 carries, 62 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. I mean that they just didn't really do anything on the ground, but that is, Ohio State has been able to lock people up on the ground all year, and that hasn't necessarily meant anything in the pass game.
Is this 2 games in a row now with just 2 touchdowns on offense for the Buckeyes? That's not a great trend for the best offense in college football. And I think we have to stop calling it the offense in college football because it's 2 weeks in a row now. And that seems to be like you are what you've been most recently, in my opinion. And so, I mean, 7 touchdowns against Indiana, 9 against Maryland. Some of those are defense, 7 against Akron, 8 against Rutgers, and so on. And now 2 against Penn State, 2 against Nebraska. I think the question now is this who Ohio State is? Is this who they are on offense? That's not great. Is this who they are on defense? While there were some issues, I think they were able to contain Adrian Martinez and not do so through turnovers. So, again, there's some credit to give to the Ohio State defense there that they were able to do this without needing 2 or 3 turnovers from Adrian Martinez. They just held up on third downs and they tackled and they covered and they broke up some passes and they were given nothing really, and they could have taken more, but they weren't really given anything. So credit the Ohio State defense for playing well. And I know it's frustrating for people to watch any type of big gains, Samari Toure and his 4 catches for like 150 yards. But again, I mean, you spread defenses out and this sort of thing happens. And that was just one play. That was like one big play. Other than that, they shut them down. They contained them well enough, Tom.
Yeah, it was again a better defensive effort than we had seen in previous weeks, and you can see the progress with the defense. They're still not perfect. They're still the long plays. Like if you put a Jordan Fuller on this team, I feel like Ohio State wins that game somewhat comfortably. Like they're not that Bryson Shaw was the cause of those long passes, but if you have a Jordan Fuller back there, it probably helps prevent them. That has been a hole for this team for a couple of years now, and you cannot play conservative, kick the field goal, play for field position if you have that kind of concerns on the back end of your defense. It doesn't work.
We have a super chat from Rifle One. Do you think Ewers is smiling to himself? Stroud's numbers look good, but if you watch the game, there's still some concerns with him. I don't think he's a slam dunk to start next year, in my opinion. All right, unpopular opinion here, guys. Unpopular opinion. Quinn Ewers cannot walk on water. Just stop. Just effing stop on that. Come on, guys. Seriously. I know that we all want to think about what's behind door number 1. There was a great game show with Monty Hall called Let's Make a Deal, and people would trade away fantastic trips for a zonk filled with, 10,000 cheeseburger wrappers. And I'm not saying that Quinn Ewers is 10,000 cheeseburger wrappers, but the thought of what could be out there shouldn't matter right now. This is a situation. CJ Stroud is the quarterback of this team right now. The only person that's going to unseat him potentially is Kyle McCord. It's not going to be Quinn Ewers. I know that there's a lot of love out there about Quinn Ewers, but this has got to stop. This has got to stop. It's not going to happen this year. It's ridiculous. I mean, it really is.
I think Ewers could start next week, and I think he's going to do great against Purdue, Tom.
I'm gonna punch you right in the face. I'm gonna punch you right in the face.
Someone earlier in the chat said they didn't want to be that guy, but the refs were atrocious. And it's don't worry if you joined us late. Kevin's already that guy, so it's fine.
I do want to touch on the Ewers thing, though. I do think, because we have kind of assumed and projected C.J. Stroud to be the guy next year with these most recent like four games or whatever, and there's no reason not to. Whereas after like the Tulsa game and the Oregon game, Tom, I know you and I were talking about how the job needs to be wide open next year and everybody should have a shot at it. After these couple of games, while C.J. Stroud is still, throwing for 400 yards, throwing for 300 yards, you can see like he's not Justin Fields, which we know. Again, 8 career starts. So I do think Quinn Ewers and Kyle McCord can look at this and be like, there's a crack in the door. There's a possibility, and I think that's also good for Ohio State for them to think that as well. Because if that door is shut, then there's no reason to stick. If C.J. Stroud throws a couple of interceptions while Ryan Day hates it, if it keeps those guys around for another year, I think he's okay with it as long as it doesn't cost you a game, a national championship, anything like that. What's the super chat here? Or go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was going to say that, C.J. Stroud, again, let us reframe the C.J. Stroud conversation. He is a redshirt freshman, second-year player, really didn't throw a pass last year, as we all know. C.J. Stroud right now looks like what I think maybe Tony thought Justin Fields was going to look like in 2019. This is what a redshirt freshman first-time starter looks like. Justin Fields is like a massive outlier. Like a completely massive outlier. Redshirt freshmen are going to make some bad choices. They are, the best thing about freshmen is they get to be, eventually they're sophomores. Like, that's next year. He's now played, this is what, his 8th start, their 9th game, his 8th start. I mean, there's a lot of football still to be played this year and then into next year. I don't know if this keeps guys around, because if guys are looking at C.J. Stroud and saying, this guy keeps turning the ball over in crucial situations, I should be starting, or I have a chance to start. If they're not getting a chance to play this year, do they go, well, obviously they're not going to, I don't know the answer to that. And this is all kind of a theoretical conversation anyway, but I do want to read
I'm talking next year though.
Yeah, next year. But I mean, if guys, before, if guys are, if someone's looking at the transfer portal after this season, if they're not playing this year and they're going, well, they didn't play me in 2021 and he wasn't great, then, and let's, again, it's not that he hasn't been great. He's been very, very good. He's been very, very good. He's not been terrible, but he's been very good. But he's been very good for a redshirt freshman, and you get graded on a little bit of a curve there. I want to read you a comment from Stroud from the postgame. Quote, "If my job was to run the ball, I'd be a running back or something. I throw the ball for a living." Thoughts?
He's not wrong. I mean, that's what Ryan Day is asking him to do, and clearly Day likes to throw the ball more than run it, so why would he want his quarterback running the ball more? But you still have to pick up yards. And there were a couple times where there was a 3rd and long where he threw the ball away rather than running it, on the rollout to the left, and he was never going to pick up anything. And so he just threw it away, and people are like, why didn't you run? And it's like a linebacker had him one-on-one, and C.J. Stroud is not Michael Vick, and he's not going to make anybody miss, and so he threw the ball away. But I think for the first time for me, he threw one that he should have run on, and I believe that was interception. I think it turned out to be an interception where he could have picked up 4 or 5 yards, and instead he went ahead and threw it because I've had no issue with him not running the ball on the scrambles and instead throwing it. And those are easy yards. And this time they had a bunch of easy yards on those types of plays on short passes. But, I think even if he ran the ball more, I wonder if it would even be enough for people who want him to run the ball.
Another quote from postgame that I want to share real quick. Ryan Day on opting to throw the ball on the play that Stroud with the strip sack at the end of the game. Quote, "If we got the right protection, I thought we had something coming open there." Kevin, I feel like that's kind of not the point in that situation.
No, it's not. I just really, I'm at a loss for words right now. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I mean, at least we didn't get a, well, wait till I look at the tape and figure it out or whatnot. But it's certainly, it just seems like there's a real disconnect on that. I don't know.
Tom, you could give us quotes from coaches, and then you would have to ask us, like, is this Ryan Day saying this or Scott Frost saying this? Because that would have been one where it's like, it could have been either guy.
All right. This is a quote.
Can we
If the
can we
Buckeyes,
can we clear a couple super chats so I can tend to the chat, because our rule is we hit super chats as soon
You're
as
right.
they come in and we're falling behind.
all right,
Okay.
Philip Pulio, do you think Stroud should have looked for a deep ball to Olave a little more this game?
Well, we saw him on. There was one where it was just out of reach of Olave, and he got the hand on it, and Ryan Day was like, nice try. Another one was an interception in double coverage. They're not going to look for it if the defense isn't allowing it. Like if they've got a safety back there, you're not generally going to pull the trigger. And also, there were times where he didn't really have time to go deep. It felt like he was getting pressured more than normal in this game. I know he was sacked twice, but it didn't feel like he had a bunch of time back there. And when he did throw it deep a couple of times, he had to avoid some pressure and then unload. And so it seemed like the game plan was just short passes. Let's just dink and dunk, stay patient, convert, and just keep staying ahead of the schedule.
Well, I think a lot of that also was Nebraska seemed to be trying to stay, have at least one safety back to help over the top, and maybe sometimes two. And this is one of these, like, I can't wait to talk to Ross Fulton to tell me what I just watched kind of games. But it felt like there was a lot of Nebraska just trying to keep stuff in front of them, and Nebraska knowing, hey, Chris Olave is really good at this. We don't want Chris Olave to beat us. So we're going to, play back, which is why the underneath stuff was more open, because you're playing, if you've got three guys back or whatever, then you're going to have more area underneath. But, that I think is something you have to kind of take into consideration. It's like Ohio State can come in with whatever game plan they want to. They can want to take a shot downfield to Chris Olave, but there were several downfield, that or further downfield that just seemed like there was a lot of throwing into coverage downfield, and you'd see two Nebraska guys kind of right in the picture there with the receiver when the camera panned down there. So I think it may have been that those weren't necessarily there because that was what Nebraska was kind of focused on taking away, which is why your slot guy Jackson Smith and Jigba in that underneath area is able to have the school record breaking day that he did.
I also thought there was some disconnects, some miscommunications with Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison at times where things weren't as crisp as they should have been and would have been if Garrett Wilson was playing.
Oh yeah, they absolutely missed Garrett Wilson.
All right, Rightful One, thank you for your super chat about Kevin's emotional outburst earlier. Kevin, I never said this year, did I? I said next year, so calm down.
And I answered in the chat. I said, look, it wasn't exactly directed to you, but there certainly have been some other chats in the thread, comments in the thread that have been viewers this and viewers that, and people wanting to see them out there right now. And look, I've had the opportunity to talk to Quinn Ewers. I'm not going to say that we've gone out, for punch and pie or anything like that. I don't know him that well. I want to see the kid do well, but I just think that there's this belief of, we've seen what this is, so I'm ready to go see what that is. And it's just a dangerous way to have a view in terms of what's going on there. So Rifle One, if you feel like I was attacking you, I apologize. You certainly didn't need a super chat. I would have seen it and still commented on you, but thank you for the $5 that goes to the slush fund. So I appreciate that.
Speaking of punch and pie, Razmataz just sent in a super chat wishing Kevin a happy birthday and telling him to spend it on cake.
Bourbon cake?
You don't think? I mean, I don't think you have to, tell Kevin to get him to spend it on cake. It seems like that's something that kind of will. The slush fund might involve literal slushies and maybe some cake. Punch and pie, yeah, that's a Kevinism. I don't know.
No, it's a South Parkism, but I stole it for myself.
The good thing is, if we ever want to get Kevin upset in a football way, we just talk about Quinn Ewers and let him go off, and then have to give him, like, here's some money, stop yelling at me, sort of thing. And it works. I guess actually that works for Kevin more so than it works for us. So let's not do that.
I was going to say,
here's one from
I'll yell for money. I'll yell for money all the time.
Here's one for Prickly Pear earlier that I wanted to touch on. In previous games, players acknowledged their adversaries, like Penn State, were calling out plays. Did anyone notice that this time around? Obviously, we're not there, so we didn't, weren't on the field with that. But there was one play where it was like a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, where I think it was just a handoff. It might have just been like an inside zone to Travion Henderson, just kind of the left side of the line. Nebraska was slanting right into the play, right where that ball was going. And I texted Ross Fulton, and just sometimes I like to text Ross Fulton and say, am I an idiot or am I seeing what I'm seeing? And it was basically that is a lot of times when you're slanting, like if you're slanting, you go the wrong way. That's when there's a big play going the other direction. So you're kind of guessing. You're guessing right. And if you're guessing right, that's an indication that maybe you're getting a little too predictable. Like, and whether that's they're going to run it towards the boundary, it was to the short side of the field. So was it towards the boundary, or was it that's the strong side of the formation? I have not scouted Ohio State enough to pick up those tendencies, but obviously Nebraska had, and Ohio State seemed like they kind of fell into a bear trap there. And that has to be a little bit of a concern that, if you're predictable in those really, really crucial situations where it's 3rd down and you can either pick up a 1st down or you've lost your possession, that's a bad spot to be predictable. Brady says, happy birthday, Kevin, in the super chat. We should just tell people it's Kevin's birthday every week. Maybe that's our new bit. Every Saturday, it's Kevin's birthday.
I can't afford to get any older. I really can't. Let's just leave them at one a year.
Well, I think when we were at Longhorn a couple weeks ago, I wanted to tell people it was Kevin's birthday. That way they would sing to him, and we could get that on camera. But at least we now know to do that next time. And no, Captain Genius, we will not be singing to Kevin. He doesn't want that. It would embarrass him.
I mean, while the song is in public domain and that shouldn't hurt us where we would have to pay a royalty on it, no, I think we're good.
Plus, it would be very uncomfortable when Tom starts singing like Marilyn Monroe. So
right, now
I have the dress on under the hoodie.
Now I need to drink.
Yeah,
I know before we got into our run of super chats, Tom was about ready to read another quote from Postgame. I don't know if we've lost our relevancy to that or what now.
I just got off of it, so we'll. I was getting off of it to check the score of the Purdue Michigan State game.
14-7. Purdue. Michigan State just missed a field goal according to Texas or Busted. I only have the game on 2 feet in front of me, but I didn't see it as I'm lost in the chat.
Every time I look up, they've been at commercial, and we've been doing this show for, 45 minutes or so, and the game has been on for at least a half an hour. Well, they're in the second quarter. Every time, but except for the missed field goal I saw, I've been watching commercials, and I'm like, is this a Fox game? No, this is crazily enough, it's an ABC game.
Thank you, Rightful One, on the super chat real quick. It is my birthday. Don't feel bad. I'm not going to yell at you about yours for 24 hours, or if I am, let me have it over the course of a month or something. I don't know.
We have to put up with him the other 364 days. You should feel bad for us. Buyers Vacation Rentals LLC. A few things here. Ryan Day's play calling is so vanilla. I've seen better play calling at the high school level. Predictable beyond belief. Henderson is too small to be an every down back. He said it before the season started. I don't know. Do you think Travion Henderson is too small to be an every down back? I don't know that I think that. I mean, he's getting, he's not getting tackled right at the line of scrimmage. Tony at one point tweeted out, here's his rush, Travion Henderson's rushes in the first half. And it was like his long was 6, but it was just like 4, 5, 6, 4, 3, 5, 4, 5, 4. Like he's just, like Tony said, he keeps them on schedule. If you're keeping him on schedule, you're big enough. And he's only, the more time he spends with Coach Mick, the bigger he's going to bulk up a little more. down in the red zone where, Ruckert, they ran it off kind of the right tackle, and Ruckert had a block and got his guy, but there were like 2-3 Nebraska guys right there at the line of scrimmage. And I mean, Henderson just kind of like vaulted himself and got really took a shot, but picked up the first down. Like that, I think he can get those tough yards. And if you can get the tough yards, I don't know that you're not big enough. Like if you're not big enough to do what? Like if you're getting the tough yards, that feels like that's the criticism of this guy's not big enough.
I mean, he's not 6'3", but I mean, he's yoked. I mean, he's got good size. I mean, we're not seeing every back coming out there being, 6'3", 235. I mean, a lot of times he was getting hit because just the way that plays were designed and guys were coming off the edge and were not being picked up. And, I don't think it's a Henderson size type of situation. I just think that they've had a very, to get to Buyers Vacation Rentals' comment, I think it's been kind of a vanilla offense, and that's been more of an issue.
Well, and Travion Henderson's listed at 5'10", 210 as a true freshman. Mike Weber, as a redshirt freshman, was listed at 5'10", 212. I mean, I don't see Travion Henderson as a guy who is too small right now. That's Evan Pryor. That's the guy who's under 200 pounds and is more of the speed guy. I think Travion Henderson can run between the tackles just fine and will pick up yards. The blocking hasn't been there, and that's been the bigger issue, is the lack of blocking up front. And I don't know if that goes back to something we talked about before the season. Do you really want 4 tackles on your offensive line? Because when they did that in 2018, they weren't able to run the ball that well. And so now you've got 4 tackles on this offensive line, and they've now gone 4 straight games without 200 yards rushing. And again, I think some of that is not because they can't run it. Today was more along the lines because they couldn't run it in the second half. But they've been able to run the ball, and they're still averaging like 6 yards a carry in some games where they didn't run for 200 yards. So that's more of a choice at that point. They're not being shut down. This is the first time the running game was I think really shut down. Maybe the Oregon game a little bit as well. But I still feel like you give Travion Henderson enough touches, eventually something good is going to happen. And you saw that in the fourth quarter. And he had, I think, 2 carries in the third quarter, or 3 carries in the third quarter for, I believe, -2 yards in that one, if I recall. And this is a guy who came into the third quarter of the season averaging 13 yards a carry. So he that average will obviously take a little bit of a drop. But I almost wonder if Day could have done better and the offense would have been better if they'd have been more vanilla. Is it vanilla to just keep dropping back and throwing short passes? Maybe it is if that's what your offense is, but maybe that's what Ohio State's offense is. Like, is it Texas Tech type of where you're just 7-yard curls and that's it?
Well, I mean, that's not what it should be. You have an offensive line that should be able to block, and you have a running back who should be able to pick up yardage, and you don't have to do that. Like, Texas Tech has to do that because they can't get the talent that a lot of the other teams in the conference have. Like, that's where you have to, like, talent is not the issue at Ohio State. And I think, they need to run the ball more, which normally you would say running the ball is vanilla, but they need to run the ball more in those games. But you have to do, we saw the speed option, like, get the ball outside, get the ball out to Travion Henderson, let him make one guy miss, and then he goes and picks up 20 yards. Like that's what you got to do. Buyers Vacation Rentals with a follow-up, not on schedule if you're throwing it 54 times. Now, here's when I say on schedule, here's what I mean by on schedule. On schedule means you're picking up 4 yards on first down, and then you're getting to 3rd and 3 on the second play. If you're staying on schedule means you're not getting into 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations. By staying on schedule, you're keeping yourself in that like 2nd and medium, 3rd and short kind of down and distance, which then means if you're in 3rd and 3, you can run the ball or you can pass the ball. You don't want to get yourself in a predictable spot. You don't want to be in 3rd and 8 where it's like, okay, they're going to have to throw the ball here. You want to be able to kind of maintain both the run and the pass. So when we talk about staying on schedule, that's what we mean. And that's why when Henderson's getting 4, 5, 6 yards every time he touches the ball, you're staying on schedule because you get 4 yards on first down. Congratulations, it's 2nd and 6. You get 4 yards on second down. Now it's 3rd and 2. Like, I mean, that's what staying on schedule means, because then it's 3rd and 2 and you can do whatever you want. You can run the ball, you can pass the ball. They passed the ball several times. It was like, what are you doing? Like there was one where I'm mixing up which of my what are you doing kicking a field goal here moments of the game, but there was a 3rd and 2. Oh, it was when they were up 3 in the fourth quarter. You're up 3 points in the fourth quarter, and they throw the ball on 3rd and 2, and then they kick a field goal. It's like you give your offensive line 2 cracks at picking that up, because a field goal doesn't do you that much good. A touchdown still beats you at that point. So yeah, I mean, yes, a field goal doesn't tie the game anymore, but a touchdown still beats you. You need to be scoring touchdowns there. Get that from 3 to 10, and then everyone's blood pressure goes down quite a bit in the last 5 minutes of the game. That was one where it was like there are like 5 different ways you could have handled those last 2 plays of that set of down, that particular set of downs. That's like the last one I would have gone with. From Bo Jingle Bells, this is Nebraska's first loss by more than 2 scores. I think people hyped themselves up too much with the historic offensive pace Ohio State had been on prior to Penn State.
I think that's a fair assessment. And who could have known that Rutgers and Maryland and those types weren't an accurate gauge on what the Ohio State offense is? I blame Tom. But yeah, I mean, this is all of the parts are still there. They still have a very good running back, a very good quarterback, outstanding receivers. I think obviously they missed Garrett Wilson here, but this has also looked a lot like last week's offense. So, what will Purdue do to them? I mean, we will see. I think things will be a little bit easier, but it's going to be interesting to see how they handle Karlaftis on the edge. What do they do there? But yeah, I'm not down on the offense at all. I just think they're somewhere in between this and what they have been, and that's still really really good, and it's still the best offense in the Big Ten. But the best offense in the Big Ten just gets you a Big Ten championship and then sent home, before sent home without necessarily any other trophies. And they need to be better than that. And I really think you just clean up the mistakes and things will take care of themselves. Play calling, good or bad, just block, don't hold, and get the playoff in time. And the scheme is there. It's all there. Just let it happen. Just make it, not let it happen, make it happen. And I see we've got a super chat.
Yep. Yeah. Sue wants to know if Michigan and Cincinnati win today, do they jump Ohio State in the playoff rankings based on how Ohio State looked today? Does Ohio State drop anyway? I mean, it feels like the answer to that is a very unsatisfying. Does Michigan
You froze
look like?
at the worst time. We never heard your answer.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I think the answer there is a very unsatisfying. It depends, because like, what does Michigan look like? Michigan plays right now is up 14-9 on Tulsa with 2.5 minutes left to go in the first half. So, I mean, that's not overwhelming. I mean, Ohio State fans know Tulsa. Tulsa is a decent team, but not a great team. So
Another 3-win team, yeah.
Yeah, Oklahoma's off this week. So, I mean, there's a possibility if Purdue beats Baylor, if Purdue beats Michigan State, Ohio State might move up this week. I mean, you can look at Ohio State's terrible. They look terrible. This is a bad team, and they have all these flaws. It's the same conversation we had earlier. They're not a top 5 team. Okay, who are the 5 teams who are ahead of them? And let me explain flaws this year, and also don't look like what you would traditionally consider top 5 teams. Like, you've got Georgia. You have to find 4 other teams. Like, we'll stipulate Georgia's a top 5 team. Okay, they're number 1. You are contractually obligated to put 4 more teams in the top 5. That's how top 5s work. So that's it'll depend is the answer. Jay Burke says Luke did save the day. Luke Whippler, take that guy to Denny's and get him the most expensive meal you can possibly buy. I assume that's got to be
$8.
I got to assume that's got to be moons over my hammy. Kevin has a take. I'm going to share that. You can let him share that in a minute. But an interesting quote from Whippler. After the game, he said he tried to use some of the technique he sees the defensive players use in fumble drills in practice, even though he doesn't participate in them. So he sees the defensive players do fumble recovery drills and applied that. That was a tweet from Griffin Strum of 11 Warriors who had that. So Kevin, what is on the menu when you hit up a Denny's?
Well, I don't get a triple super bird, but I do love the super bird. But you probably need to get about 3 of them, maybe a side salad and a large shake. I mean, I think you're still probably rolling out of there for about $20. I don't know. I don't get to go to Denny's that much. That's kind of an on the road type of situation, and not a big chain guy when we travel.
I like that you're getting side salad, so you're eating healthy. That's good. That's smart.
That's just for caloric intake right there. I mean, it's just loading up. You don't know when that next meal's coming.
There aren't a lot of Denny's in Columbus anyway. I do see Cincinnati's best win this season, currently tied with Navy 3-3 late in the second, but Notre Dame is driving. So they could go into the half up by maybe a touchdown on Navy. So that's something for Cincinnati fans to root for as well. What is a triple bird?
Well, there's a super bird. I'm just saying Frankenstein it into like a triple. I mean, I don't even, a super bird is like I don't even know. I don't remember last time I ate at Denny's sober. So I don't know.
Fair.
Easy there.
Just to kind of everyone's bad this year, so it's okay if Ohio State looks bad at sometimes. Arkansas 10, Mississippi State. No, excuse me, number 17, Mississippi State.
Thank you.
0, end of the first quarter. Purdue 14, number 3, Michigan State 7, second quarter. I mean, it's just Auburn and Texas A&M are currently having a 3-3 rock fight at halftime, or almost halftime.
That's SEC. That just means it's 2 good teams. That's all that means.
TCU, who just fired their legendary coach, 10, number 12 Baylor 7, 9.5 minutes left in the second quarter. It's just number 11 Oklahoma State currently leading West Virginia 7-3 almost at halftime. Notre Dame just scored to take the lead over Navy finally. Their first lead of the game with 2:46 left in the first half. I mean, Cincinnati currently leading Tulsa 14-9. Ole Miss did what now?
They
were
27-13.
Yeah.
They were up 24. Yeah, they were up 24-0 at halftime, and then it was 27-14 at the end. North Carolina 58, number 9 Wake Forest 55, Illinois 14, number 20 Minnesota 6. I mean,
it's going to be one of those days. I mean, we might not see a lot of straight up losses by these ranked teams, but we could. I mean, it's going to be one of those days because it's not the greatest day of games on the schedule. I mean, your ranked versus ranked is that A&M. What was it? A&M Auburn. Yeah, that's like your big ranked versus ranked game, and then you have some intriguing games, but you don't have a lot of them. But those always seem to be the days that all hell kind of breaks loose. So we could be sitting there. I could be listening to Morning Scoop, tomorrow or Monday and being like, holy hell, the whole landscape has changed.
Yeah. And go ahead.
The 7:30 games are going to be interesting. It's Oregon at Washington, which is setting up for something similar to what we've seen all day long with ranked teams on the road. And then, of course, Indiana at number 7, Michigan, just to get another glimpse of Michigan and see where they go. So I think there's still going to be some fun stuff to watch tonight. And maybe that San Diego State-Hawaii game at 11 o'clock on FS1. If you have nothing else going on and you want to just stay up and, do crafts and such, then that one is for you. And that'll be
I'm going to make you guys friendship bracelets while I watch that game to convince me to be your friend.
It's Kevin's birthday, and we're getting the presents. What a day.
I know. And then I had to make chili this morning for a party that I'm not invited to.
Next week, Kevin will be like, hey, where's the bracelets I made you? And then we'd have to come up with various excuses as to why we left them at home or didn't have them. And like, oh, yeah, my wife really loved it. So I thought, you know what? Here, why don't you wear it rather than me? Or, you know what? My dog really loved it. So I threw it away.
Yeah, I think we probably need to have a broader conversation for a minute about the difference between, like, Ohio State needs to improve on several different areas, and that is not the same that is not the same conversation as the season is lost, because I see people conflating those two things in the comments. And yes, there are areas that Ohio State has to get better. Ohio State needs to run the ball. They need to have better run blocking. They need to probably have a better play calling mix in terms of more running in close games and not just sort of panicking and leaning on the pass game. They need to make some better choices on fourth downs, especially in plus territory. You got to do that. You got to solve some of the big play issues, but they have solved a lot of the issues that they had a month and a half ago. They have not solved all of the issues, but they've solved a lot of them. And with the way the rest of the country is, if you don't play Georgia in the first round of the college football playoff, you're probably getting you got a decent chance with an Ohio State level talent to get to the national championship game, almost no matter who else you're playing.
Do you agree with the GOJ? The Buckeyes don't need style points; they need wins. In general, I agree, but there may come a point where they do need style points if they get down to being measured against Oregon or Oklahoma. Uh, Fortunately, they have a shared win with Oklahoma, and theirs is by a larger margin of victory. And I think they also probably had more game control and all of that stuff because they're not supposed to look at margin of victory and stuff like that when you're comparing common opponents, which again, impossible. Why even look then if you're not going to look at who won by more? So there is that, but
Oh my God! Anybody watching the Purdue game, the craziest
I j-
the flea flicker screenplay that I've seen in 20 years. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Green.
interrupt.
All right, here comes the replay. Tom, you'll see it here in sec live, I'm sure.
Well, I had to turn my TV off because
Well, Tony will get to see it.
Yeah, I'm watching actual cable now. They're going to kick this extra point, and we'll see. I'm watching the screen, the my tablet, my phone, as Kevin is just like looking up the entire time. I'm like, is he frozen? It's like, no, Purdue is just pulling off
No,
something crazy.
I mean, yeah, they're kicking the point after here for me. I'm on DirecTV, so I've got about 7 second lag over everybody else.
So Purdue up 21-7 now on Michigan State if this offside on the extra point. So 21-7 with 4:50 to go in the second quarter.
I mean,
It would have been nice.
it's insane. It's crazy. I mean, it was a lot of moving parts for the back who caught it to have like an 8-man convoy with them.
I like the fact that
Jackson
you guys are quite literally the I'm the Buckeye Weekly post game show with DirecTV. I'm the Buckeye Weekly post game show with cable. It's literally what we have here. Good, good. Those are
Unfortunately,
great.
they did not show a replay because they have to get to these freaking
Well,
commercials.
we'll get to it eventually,
Mhm.
so we can get back to talking. I was going to say, now it's 21-7 in this game. We can talk about style points. Ohio State still
Mhm.
has at least 2 more ranked games because
Mhm.
even if Michigan State bips this one, they're probably still going to be ranked by the time Ohio State plays them. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Purdue, if they win, this could move up. So it could be ranked Purdue, ranked Michigan State, ranked Michigan. And then if Ohio State wins all 3 of those, then they're in the Big Ten championship game and a 4th ranked game. So your style points do mean something to a certain extent. You don't want to. A win is a win, but if you win it in a very ugly manner, people are going to try and pick it apart. So you want to win showing some game control. But I don't think Ohio State needs to sit there and worry about it to the point of if we don't do this or we don't do that, we're not going to get there. If you win 4 ranked games at the end of the season to go out, I mean, that's worth something.
It's worth something, and it's especially worth something when all of these other teams that are at in the what they would call mid table in European soccer, the teams in the like behind Ohio State and in the 10 spots behind Ohio State, a whole bunch of those teams are losing or lost today, or didn't look great today, and are not going to have the opportunity to pick up a bunch of quality wins that Ohio State has coming up. I'm going to hit Jordan Kapler super chat here. He says, I'm going to have the same take this week that I did last week. A win is a win. And when you do it against a team that is giving you its all while struggling yourself, you need to be happy about it and move on. And that's true to a certain extent. And, this goes back to what I was saying kind of 5 minutes ago. You have to, there's stuff they have to get fixed. Unquestionably, there's stuff they have to get fixed. You want to get that, it's best to learn those lessons in a win, You have to you get you win, you go on the road, you play a team that has given everyone fits this season. You handle your business, you move on. You're back home next week. Now you have to get stuff fixed because there are no more gimmies on the schedule. I think 3 weeks ago we looked at that Purdue game and it was kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, Purdue's not very good, so they'll be able to sort of work some stuff out against Purdue. Like, nope.
No, it's becoming real.
Yeah, now that's a real game, and then you get a real game against Michigan State, and then you get a real game against Michigan, and then you get a real game against what is now very likely going to be Wisconsin. I mean,
yeah.
Wisconsin is up 31-3 at halftime on Rutgers. Wisconsin looks like Happy learned how to putt. So, and at that point, I think the concern is almost more, not are they winning with style points or not. It's now you're playing this game today was a pretty, that was not an easy game. You're not going to have an easy game the next week. You're not going to have an easy game the week after that. You're not going to have an easy game the week after that. And then the fifth week, you have to play Wisconsin, who has a very physical defense. Looks like they're sort of figuring it out on offense. I mean, go back to 2019. The end of the season was Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin. By the time you got to that Wisconsin game in the Big Ten championship game, they were tired. They were beat up. They looked like crap in the first half. I think they went into halftime trailing. And that was the difference between LSU being number one. LSU won their SEC game decisively. Ohio State struggled a little bit with Wisconsin because they were tired and beat up. And that was the difference with LSU getting the first round bye against Oklahoma, and then Ohio State having to go play Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl. Like that's I think where this is going to catch up with them is 5 difficult physical games in a row is going to be a real challenge for this team.
And if they're not leaning into that physicality right now and they've become this finesse passing team, then it's going to be exposed even more. And I was watching the game today wondering, how many points are they going to score against Wisconsin? Is it 17? I mean, is it 19? Is it 1 touchdown and another 4 field goals? And are we looking at like a 19-16 really ugly type of Big Ten championship game? And yet here we are. Ohio State can't be looking ahead to that, and we probably shouldn't be either. There's still 3 games to go, and at this point, with the way the offense is playing right now, I think is the defense can they lean on the defense a little bit more, and I don't issues with the safeties for Ohio State, and Lathan Ransom has not been great in coverage this year. We know Bryson Shaw has had his issues. He did have a great play today, but he also did not help out on the Lathan Ransom touchdown that he gave up to Samari Toure. So there are still issues on the back end there that need to be fixed. And I don't know that there's a fix right now on the roster. And it's something where you've got to get better as the season goes on. But I think there's a ceiling to the safeties right now that could pose some issues, and that's why it's about outscoring the opponents, like with offense in the playoffs. And now your offense is looking like I don't know what kind of shootout they can actually get in at this point.
A kick out, just hit 3 points at a time, man. You can have a 3-point shootout. Just boom. It's like NBA 3-point shooting contest. That's the Ohio State football version this year. An interesting point from Brady. So many of Ohio State's players are young; they haven't seen everything. And he says when they play competent teams, they tend to struggle a little bit. Once they get that experience, they'll be great. And that's an important thing. I mean, you've got a redshirt freshman quarterback, you've got a true freshman running back, you have a second-year wide receiver who just broke a school record today. You had a true freshman wide receiver and a redshirt freshman wide receiver who were kind of filling in for Garrett Wilson today. I mean, you have a second-year player in Paris Johnson on the offensive line. You have a third-year player in DeJuan Jones, first-year starter on the offensive line. I mean, you go through it. Just there's so many young guys, and there's a lot of young guys. I mean, you saw Jack Sawyer on defense. You saw JT Tuimoloau on defense. You saw Steele Chambers, who's not young, but who is new to the linebacker position. I mean, there's so many young guys all over this team that that's great news for the learning curve is going to continue to be a very steep one. It's also good for, hey, these guys are going to be around another year. The only person who I said there who might not is DeJuan Jones, and he just might not be back next year. He theoretically could leave. There's just so much talent on this team. But, I mean, Tony, to his point, there's a lot of first times for a lot of these guys this year.
Absolutely, and it's almost all first times, and that's something Ryan Day has talked about all year long where the more times they go through this, now they have a reference point to something else they've gone through. And even through these first times, look at what C.J. Stroud is doing. He's going to be all Big Ten quarterback. Travion Henderson did more against Nebraska than Kenneth Walker did. Kenneth Walker, 19 carries for 61 yards. Travion Henderson, 21 for 92 or something like that. Would have gone for over 100 had Ryan Day decided not to pass after Henderson had just gone for 92. It looked like almost a sure thing at that point. Like, okay, this next one is going to go to the house. That's just how this goes. We've seen this. And then Ryan Day was like, yeah, that's boring. I want to keep things exciting. He's a young head coach. Everything is he likes exciting stuff. And so there is that. But the offense is going to, I guess it just gives them something to continue to work on. And at least they aren't going to be bored in those team meetings, the coaches.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. You're not going to get this team's not going to get complacent. I guess that's good news. Chris Bird says it's midnight here in Djibouti. I'm staying up to watch you guys and enjoy this win, even if it was sloppy. Interesting point from Doug Rockhold. Oh, there was an earlier point in about the 2014 and 1968 teams both being young. Ed Rogers, Ohio State had a young team in 14 and 68. It always feels to me like it's the team before the team you expect that wins the national championship. Ohio State. 2000, 1968, it was the Super Softs. 2002, it was like, well, yes, they've got a true freshman running back and a first-year starting quarterback. And, 2003, like, they're going to have everyone back. They're going to be loaded. It was the 2002 team that won. 2014, that was the team that won. It wasn't the 2015, the team that had all the third-year players. So, it's sort of an interesting pattern in Ohio State history, and you're seeing even more now younger guys, like Justin Ross as a true freshman wide receiver was like one of the stars of one of those Clemson national championship teams. You see those, the freshman wide receivers for Alabama over the years, or the freshman running backs for Alabama over the years, like Tua Tagovailoa, rather famously as a freshman, won a national championship as a quarterback for Alabama. Like sometimes it is those young teams that do that do kind of go ahead and surprise you a year ahead of schedule. Tulsa now down 14-12, although Notre Dame did score a long touchdown to go up 17-3 on Navy.
Baylor now 14-13 over TCU, and it's still that 3-3 Texas A&M Auburn. I'm sure that is just the best looking game on television, with those two outstanding defenses just giving it their all and holding two outstanding offenses
Heart
in
of a
check.
champion.
Hearts of champions, not just a champion, two champions, two hearts, perhaps double-hearted champions, as Michigan State just goes in to score, and it's 21-13 with the point pending. What does John Alexander have to say, Kevin?
Well, since it's about me, I'll read it. Kevin, my friends and I are toasting your birthday with Guinness Stout. Enjoy your special day. Thank you, Touchdown Michigan State. As soon as we're done with our shows or whatever, I've got some Oktoberfest in the fridge, and maybe I'll be able to get a little bit of chili out of the pot and have a taste of food, and there will be libations through the evening.
Better record tomorrow's morning scoop early then. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, probably.
See how I ruined Kevin's day there with one simple sentence? Man, you got to be good at this stuff. FDR is great. Says, do you think this Buckeye offense is fool's gold? They beat down on the cupcakes and struggle versus good defensive teams with the pulse. I mean, watching the Rutgers game and the Maryland game a couple weeks ago, I thought, okay, they've figured it out. But then there's just that voice in the back of your head going, hey, remember 16? I think they had back-to-back 62-3 games in that year, and then I don't. What was your favorite touchdown from their bowl game that year, Tony? You know what? No, I'll make it easier. What was your favorite scoring play? You can even include a field goal.
Oh, you know what? I would have to go through my Trapper Keeper and look at my memories of that game to give you just so many. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's fool's gold. I think maybe it's just silver. Like, it's not gold. It's lesser. It's a lesser precious metal, because they did still put up 495 yards of total offense against a Nebraska defense that hasn't allowed anybody else to do that this season, including Oklahoma. So let's give Ohio State credit for doing something that nobody else has done. And also 495 yards of total offense is actually pretty good. I know Ryan Day has made it look below average. Technically, it is below average for Ohio State at this point, but relatively to anybody else, it's pretty good. And so there have been many worse Ohio State offenses. I mean, Jim Tressel, they would average, I don't know, 430 yards of total offense a game. And if we could probably count the 500-yard games on two hands in his career, I'm guessing. And so what did I say?
Much. Well, you said on two hands. Like, no, I think it's probably not that, probably not quite that bad. But yeah, they didn't. 500 was definitely not the standard back then. Not even close.
Well, remember when Dwayne Haskins was throwing for 400, and it was such a big deal. Oh, there was like an Art Schlichter game, and and that's it, kind of. And C.J. Stroud has a very unremarkable game and throws for 405. And granted, it was 36 of 54. 68 of those yards came on a big JSN play. So there were some hidden numbers involved in that, but we're definitely looking at some very different types of the game has evolved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can we have a brief conversation about Scott Frost and his game management? I know this is an Ohio State podcast, but you hear people wondering, how can Nebraska be so much better? And they just keep losing all these close games. And it's like, yes, they do some really dumb stuff, and they put themselves in bad spots. Holy pants, Scott Frost. Can you see the scoreboard from the sideline? Like, what are you doing? Like, you look at the first drive, they went 11 plays, 57 yards, ends on the 9-yard line, and kicks a field goal. Like, what about this team, this Nebraska team? No, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Ended at the Ohio State 27-yard line, kicks a field goal. Missed a field goal. He missed a field goal, and then he's kicks another field goal from the Ohio State 21. He misses a field goal from the Ohio State 13. Like, what are you doing? Like, first of all, I knew your kicker was bad, and I just literally looked at the stat sheet this week, and he's like, oh, their kicker's made like 50% of his field goals. So obviously, Scott Frost is not a complete moron. Scott Frost recognizes that Ohio State's going to put up points and that he's going to have to score touchdowns, and field goals are not going to win the game for him today. Plus, his field goal kicker is not very good. So I said, he's going to go for it 4 times on 4th down. Tony, want to guess how many times he went for it on 4th down?
Once.
Nope. Sorry. The answer is nonce. 0 times.
Nonce.
0 times. Nonce. Yes. Good job. You know what that makes him? A dunce. Hey, like, what are you doing? You are in a game where you have to win the game in order to have a chance to remain bowl eligible. You might maybe have your job on the line this season, which might hinge on bowl eligibility. You are past the point where, well, a moral victory over a top 10 team in the college football playoff rankings means anything to your fan base because you've already got 3 of those. Like, what are you doing? You have to play to win the game. You cannot play for, well, we'll keep it close and then we'll kind of see. Like, you kicked 3 field goals. You missed 2 of them because your kicker is not very good. And you're doing this against a team with an offense that has, puts up explosive plays. He had, I think, one of the field goal tries, he kicked it. I think he might have made it. And then immediately you had the 70 whatever yard pass to Jackson Smith-Njigba the other way. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're moving the ball somewhat on this Ohio State defense. It wasn't completely stuffed all day. How do you keep thinking, well, we're just going to play for 3, and we're going to punt on 4th and 10, and late in the game? Like, what? You cannot play for moral victories. That's just like complete mismanagement. Oh, and you use your timeouts on defense. You use them early to stop the clock because then it keeps the other team from running the play clock all the way down. Like, and you do that early, so you try and give your offense as much time as you can. Like, this is also very, very fundamental game management stuff. And, it was like, I think I said this on our board or somewhere, but it was like a reverse Ted Lasso where they had just brought someone over from the Premier League who'd never seen college football before and is like, well, now you're in charge of strategy. Good luck. Like, okay, how many points are field goals worth again? I don't remember.
I know that there was a timeout that Nebraska took, and it could have been in the first half. It all kind of runs together at this point where they were in a single high look, and Ohio State was going to gouge them big time, and they took a timeout to try and get out of that look. And I don't remember if that was in the first half or the second half, but I remember seeing it, and I was like, Ohio State's got some dudes who are matched up one-on-one, and this could end up being really bad. So, and if it was in the first half, then, what happened the second half is even more inexcusable. But, Scott Frost certainly did not do well with the big book of clock management. I'll say that.
No.
It's strange. You would think he would be an aggressive coach. Although, do you lose your aggression as the job kind of gets more out of your control, or when you're on a hot seat, do you get less aggressive? Where you wonder if he'd be more aggressive, would he now be not 5-21 in one score games and instead be 10-16 or something like that? And would it have helped at all this year to not just sit back and let's let whatever we do, guys, in these first three quarters, let's just try not to screw it up in the fourth quarter? And it's like, but why don't you try to win it in the first three quarters so that when you do screw it up in the fourth quarter, it's a 7-point win because you're up by 14 rather than a 7-point loss because you're tied. And, and here we are. But I think I guess I owe an apology to Adrian Martinez for assuming he was going to have more turnovers in this game than he did. That interception at the end was meaningless because they were down 9 and nothing was going to happen. So, good game by him. And it just goes to show you that it's not entirely Scott Frost or it's not entirely Adrian Martinez. Much of it is. Some of the games are certainly on Adrian Martinez, but I saw somebody mention that those two are tied together. It's something we've said, and I don't know that Scott Frost is able to right the ship and be anything different than he's been. Like, I don't know that does a better quarterback change things? Maybe, but there's still going to be mistakes like that a head coach shouldn't be making at that point. I mean, can he get Trace McSorley to take him to the promised land and kind of negate what James Franklin, negate the James Franklinness of Scott Frost? Do you have a quarterback that can play so well to overcome some of your own coaching mistakes and your time management issues? I don't know that that's going to happen. We have seen no evidence that he's going to bring that guy in unless it's a transfer of a guy who's already been established. And is anybody really clamoring to play for Nebraska right now?
No, and they had a graphic on the broadcast where they talked about how they have kind of lost their Texas recruiting pipeline, which makes sense because you're no longer playing in Texas. That's something we talked about before the game. But graphical advantage, and you've kind of lost a lot of your cachet as a program. And it's like Lincoln is a lovely town. It's a great school. It's a fantastic campus. It's like a lot about it. It has a lot going for it, but it does not have it. Nebraska does not mean to people who are Nebraska means to people who are 45 right now. That's just the reality of the situation. Jason Kunn says Chris Carter's last year, who was the quarterback? That would have been 1986. So that would have been Jim Carsados. I am Jaden Cook says I think Lathan Ransom played a little bad today, but he is still developing. I mean, Kevin, what are your thoughts on Lathan Ransom? I mean, is he a strength? Is he a liability? Is he kind of in the middle? Like, what do you think of Lathan Ransom right now?
I think he's in the middle. You're going to get the good with the bad, and it's just a situation of he's a young guy who's still learning. I mean, you have guys that 2020 was a washout for a lot of guys, just based on how practice was set up, how you didn't know from week to week how you were going to be able to line up, who was going to be able to go. We've got to keep people in small groups, but we can't have the whole group together because if one person goes into protocol, then everybody is, it was not a good year. So nobody that year was able to really get a lot better unless you truly were a 1. And even with that, I still don't think everybody who was a 1 necessarily got the type of development that they would have. So taking that back to Lathan Ransom, we see moments where Ransom just jumps off of the screen. He just has a great game. He makes a great couple plays. And then he has a moment or two where he looks like a young guy. And on that first touchdown by Nebraska, he looked like a young guy who was, he certainly was not helped by Bryson Shaw on that play. I'll say that. But, Ransom wasn't able to execute the play the way that he was supposed to. And it sprung Toure for a big gain. And it ended up being the touchdown. So, I don't see Ransom as somebody of saying, oh, well, back to the drawing board, next man up. But with that being said, Ransom has got so much more of a high ceiling on him, and we just did not get one of his better games today.
I see Lathan Ransom more as a strong safety than a free safety, but the Ohio State defense doesn't have a strong safety. That's the bullet pretty much, and Ronnie Hickman, you're not going to take him off the field, and so you're just trying to find ways to put these guys in the best position to help out. And we thought a few weeks ago guys had finally found their spots, and it still looks like Lathan Ransom is maybe one of those guys who hasn't, because what is his spot? It used to be he and Bryson Shaw would just switch back and forth, and now is he the nickel safety, and what exactly is his role? And man coverage has really never been his strength, which is why it was surprising that he was the cover safety to start the season. And we saw how long that lasted. And maybe things are still trying to be found out. But again, they only have so many options right now at safety. That will get better next year and the year after. But what the answers are going to come from the handful of players that they have right now, and you're going to have to work around those guys and hope the defensive line gets to the quarterback to protect what you've got on the back end, which takes me back to the 2006 Buckeyes when they were trying to protect Jamario O'Neal at safety, and when they played Florida, and how Florida just took advantage of him every single play. And you can't hide those guys for long, and they eventually get found out. And I don't know that that's Lathan Ransom, but as Kevin said, he's had good moments, he's had some rough moments, but he is still just a sophomore, and he also has only had a handful of starts. And so, where they are now, where they are in January, probably won't be the same place for a lot of these guys.
Nick says he wishes Jackson Smith and Jigba got 20 more yards to break the single game receiving yards record. I mean, that was you look at the top of those at Ohio State, and there's usually one of two kinds of games: either a high scoring loss, which is what David Boston had the school in the 1997 Penn State Ohio State game, which was 31-27, I think, which back then counted as a high scoring loss. That was a fantastic football game. Like, I still remember and going, like, I'm not even mad. Like, that was a great football game. But the Terry Glenn single game record, which was, I think that was in a 1995, I believe. And
95.
Yeah, 253 yards, 254 yards, whatever it was. And, so it's normally like a big blowout win, or, all of the Ohio State passing records until Dwayne Haskins were, it was all like, this team is terrible and they can't put the ball in the end zone, so they just have to throw. Like Arch Leister had the record for have that many catches, that many yards in a win, and a close win too. Like, that is not the kind of game that you typically see that in. That was just of all the things during that game, that was about the 17th weirdest thing about that game to me. But like, that was still a weird thing to me.
Here, Jackson Smith and Jigba now with 50 receptions on the season for 888 yards after the 240-yard outing, falling 13 yards short of tying Terry Glenn's record. I figured one more. I thought he was going to get it, because every time they dropped back, it was a pretty good chance it was going to go to Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska had to go and ruin it by forcing a fumble on C.J. Stroud, the big bunch of bullies that they are.
Sure.
So there is that. I don't German drummer 13. I'm probably going to write about this week. Like, Alabama, I don't know that they're out with a loss, but I'm going to do my dangest to start shaming the committee right now, so that they are out with a loss. If you lose 2 games, come on, the losses have to matter. And I know we're already chalking up a loss to Georgia, and how can you blame anybody for losing to Georgia? You lost. I mean, this is your second loss. That's enough. That's the way it's always been. And so I think if we all just band together, hands across America, and just not let Alabama end with 2 losses, I think we can do this. I think we can. That is the one thing, the only thing that can bring America together is let's not let Alabama end with 2 losses.
Here's the thing: the ACC's out. ACC's out. The Pac-12, if Oregon loses a game or two, maybe one more game, the Pac-12 is probably functionally out. If Ohio State loses another game, if Ohio State, say, loses to Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, they will have given Michigan a second loss. They will have given, Michigan State, if they lose this game today, they will have given Michigan State a second loss. I don't think you can make any hard and fast declarative right now because it's such a chaotic, weird year. And I think that all the teams have a certain amount of flaw to them. And you can't just, this is not a definitive statement year. I mean, there was a year when a 2-loss LSU team won the national championship, top 2, not the top 4. I mean, it takes a weird year for that to happen, but this is a weird year. And, it is entirely possible that Ohio State and Oregon and Michigan State and, you telling me you're having a high degree of confidence that Oklahoma's getting through their, and then one of those teams again. You're telling me you've got a high degree of confidence that Baylor's getting through those 4 games without 1 or 2 losses? I don't think so. So, I mean, and Cincinnati is just perpetually playing with its food every week. So, again, this is a 4-team playoff. Here's the thing about a 4-team playoff. 4 teams have to make it. That's how it works. So I don't know that you can make any kind of real firm declarative statements about, if so-and-so loses a second game, they're absolutely out. Necessarily true this year.
No, and that was all with the understanding that all heck doesn't break loose. That's Tom, I appreciate you saying all of that. I agree 100% with what you said, but this is with the understanding that the craziness only goes so far. But this being the year that we've seen,
how crazy is that? That's not
no.
And Illinois wins out. I don't think there's anything there that would be. I don't think there's any result there would be like. I stand there like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, like, what happened? How? All of those seem like extremely, and who's in at that point? Notre Dame, maybe, and because Notre Dame really doesn't have any losable games left. But yeah, I mean, Notre Dame, Cincinnati,
UTSA.
Yeah, no, UTSA is not getting invited, which is unfair, but they're not getting invited.
No. Negative.
No. Anything else as we look to wrap it up?
We put a lot of questions in the queue, but we've kind of answered things as we've been going along. So I don't know. Something I do promise, I'm going to reset my router before we record any more or do any more live programming. Hopefully that fixes the issue with some of the freezing. I appreciate everybody for bearing with us. Shocking that home Wi-Fi is actually behaving worse than stadium Wi-Fi, but that seems to be the case right now. So we'll have to figure that one out.
I just wish one day they get this internet figured out. It is such a bizarre thing, and one day maybe everybody can have access to it. I look forward to that day. So that will then do it for us from here. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. As always, you can find these videos at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Go ahead and hit the bell. You'll be notified anytime we go live. If you want the audio version of this, you can search on any of your podcast platforms for the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. And if you'd like Kevin's podcast, search out the Big Me Kickoff podcast, and you'll get it there as well. Or just search Buckeye Scoop, and there will be tons of other podcasts for you as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.